Hello dear viewers, we are from Syndicate 1 MBA program, class of 66C. First of all, we would like to introduce ourselves. My name is Adrian.
My name is Adzka.
My name is Puspa.
My name is Ryanda, and in this opportunity, I would like to present about strategic decision making and negotiation assignment, which lectured by Mr. Ryanda Wira S regarding scenario planning subject.
The company that we choose is Grab Holdings Incorporated, specifically on the issue how the transition from gasoline vehicle to electric vehicle by Grab Indonesia affect their performance in the future.
The reason why we choose Grab in this issue because we think that sustainability is one of a major issue that we have to be concerned. And Grab is one of the most successful company in Indonesia that have a huge number of customers that trying to implement sustainability.
We hope you enjoy our presentation.
Before entering to the discussion, we would like to elaborate more regarding the company profile of Grab Holding Incorporation, specifically of Grab Indonesia. Grab is a leading super app in Southeast Asia, providing everyday services such as mobility, deliveries, and digital financial services, and have operations in 8 countries or more than 480 cities across Southeast Asia. Grab has a vision to drive Southeast Asia forward by solving real-world transport and mobile payments problems that hinder progress, and they have a mission to drive the region forward by creating economic empowerment for everyone. In maintaining their sustainability, Grab has priorities that includes: first, creating positive social impact; second, protecting the environment; and third, upholding responsible business practices. To elaborate more regarding their sustainability program, Grab has a carbon neutral by 2040 that consists of immediate term in 2021, medium term in 2030, and long term in 2040. This carbon neutral by 2040 has a purpose to support the transition to low-emission vehicles by encouraging their driver partners and switching their fleet from petrol engines.
First of all, we have to understand the difference between scenario planning and forecast planning. Scenario planning is a process to stimulate imaginative and creative thinking to prepare an organization for the future. The purpose of using scenario planning is to decide the significant amount of uncertainty. Scenario planning is different compared to forecast planning. As we can see from the picture, forecast planning focuses on one future while scenario planning are preparing for multiple future. There are 3 types of scenario planning. First one is adaptive, where the purpose of the organization are to adapt and thrive through learning about the future. Second is transformative, where the purpose is to transform the situation to influence what could happen in the future. And the third is strategic reframing, where the purpose is to reframe and reperceive present situation to allow intervention in strategic choices. In order to conduct scenario planning, there are several protocols to comply. First, the participant involved around 15 to 30 people. Next, the participant must come from various departments and different layer management in order to fully expanding the perspective. The whole process takes around 3 to 9 months. For the scenario planning stages, we divided into 5 categories. First is establishing key focal issue, followed by exploration, where we determine driving force, critical uncertainties, and scenario framework. Third is determining the scenario and narratives. Fourth is option consideration, where we discuss about implication and option. And last is integration, where we establish early warning signal. Next, we will explain the stages related to our case.
Step 1. Key focal issue. As mentioned before, we are here to discuss about transition to low-emission vehicle by Grab Indonesia. So Grab works with governments, automakers, and infrastructure players to build a sustainable and inclusive electrification ecosystem across the region. This will go towards supporting our driver partners' transition to low-emission vehicles, or LEV, which includes battery electric vehicles, extended range EVs, plug-in hybrid EVs, and hybrid EVs. Grab has launched Yes Grab Green in Singapore, a ride-hailing service that prioritizes LEV. We also have the largest electric vehicle fleet in Indonesia. Based on our source, the Indonesian government has started the development of renewable energy. As in accordance with government regulation of the Republic of Indonesia number 79 of 2014 concerning the national energy policy to develop alternative energy source as a substitute for fuel oil, where renewable energy is targeted to reach 23% by 2025. Therefore, Grab Indonesia is committed to implementing renewable energy by transitioning conventional fuel vehicle to electric vehicle as an effort to become an environmentally friendly company. So we decided to do some research about Grab Indonesia, specifically about the transition from gasoline vehicle to electric vehicle by Grab Indonesia affect the performance in the future. Next will be elaborated by my friend.
We will now discussing about exploration. For driving forces, we divide it into 3 layers. First is contextual, second is transactional, and third is organization. After that, we rank the driving forces based on the uncertainty and impact through Cartesian diagram, where y-axis represent uncertainty and x-axis represent impact. The following diagram are the arrangement. We decided to focus more on point 10 and 13, which is government policy and technology advancement.
After finishing the step 2 driving forces, now we will moving on to the step 3 scenario elements. In this step, we divided it into 4 zones, where it has a different situation of between the government policy and the technology advancement. On the top right, where the situations is the government policy and technology advancement is high and fast respectively. Hence, the elements that signify these zones are: the transition will be done smoothly, new investment in Indonesia electrical vehicle industry, oil dependency decrease, demand on electricity increase, and economic growth increase. Next, on the top left, where the government policy is low but the technology advancement is fast, the elements that indicates the zones are: incentive for careless parties to profit from the adoption of electric vehicles without legal certainty, and Indonesia's adoption of the use of electric vehicles will lag behind that of other nations. Furthermore, on the bottom right, where the government policy is fast but the technology advancement is slow, the elements that signify the zones are: electric vehicle industry has to catch up, government have to support the implement of electric vehicle, and increasing in oil price. And lastly, on the bottom left, where the government policy and technology advancement is low and slow respectively, the elements that indicate the zones are: underdevelopment, heavily reliant on oil, and lowering the potential value and on fresh investment.
Options and consideration. Now, for the sake of simplicity, in this step, we gave each of the zones name. For example, the top right zone, which is the zone in which if the government policy and the technological advancement both are high and fast, which means that the technology needed can be delivered and the government regulation can keep up with it. Now we name this zone the perfectly ecological. Now, in each zone, we give both implication and options. Now, on this zone, the implication, the most impactful implication that our group think is the highly competitive market. And the options for Grab is to be more innovative to gain more market share. Now, there are other implications that might happen in this zone, such as job vacancy increase. Why? Because of course with the use of electric vehicle, which means the company, be it Grab or any other company with similar interests, will have to acquire the electrical vehicle in bulk. Now, which means that the factory will have to make them a lot more than they are making them today, and they will need more worker. Now, in this part, the option that we choose for the company is that driver and partner will have to be increase the number of them. Now, the next zone I'm going to explain here is the government came early zone, which is the bottom right. Now, in this zone, the highly impactful implication that might happen is the intense competition in the quest of technical development. Now, why? Because in this zone, the government have made the regulation correctly and in time, but the technology has not kept up with it. Now, the option for Grab is that Grab must collaborate with firms or partners to develop the technology needed for them to be able to use the electric vehicle. Now, the next zone I'm going to explain is the imperfect reality zone, which is the bottom left zone. This is a zone that in which government policy and technological advancement both lagging, which means Grab doesn't have the technology, nor does the government has the regulation ready for it. Now, the highly impactful implication in this zone is that wasting their investment on electric vehicles since it's not applicable. Now, if Grab were to use the electric vehicle in this scenario, of course, it will not be applicable since the regulation has not kept up with it. Then the options is for Grab, that is to sell their assets. Now, there is also another implication that we have to notice here, that is the fuel shortage. This is not a problem that only occurs for Grab or any other similar companies, but all of us, because the current fuel that we highly dependent on, which is fossil fuel, are very finite. Now, the options for that scenario is to decrease their surface scale to save the uses of fuel. Now, and the last zone we're going to explain here is the government late zone, in which this is a zone in which government policy has not kept up with the technology, which means we have the technology, we have the electric vehicle, but we do not have the regulation to use it. Now, for the highest impactful implications, in our opinion, is that companies that have created the right technology, the correct technology, will have to export it to other countries. That includes Grab. The options for Grab here is that Grab also export the technology and services to other country, meaning that in our opinion, Grab doesn't have to stop with their transition to the electric vehicle, but instead they will have to apply this strategy in another country that has already regulated the use of electric vehicle. They have to apply this strategy in a country that have already regulate the use of electric vehicle as a public transport.
I would like to elaborate the previous presentation from my friends. Step 5. Early warning signs. Early warning signs is one of important for the company because they help leaders understand how the future might unfold and they alert top management to new developments and issues. Typically conceived as opportunities and threats, they help leaders understand how to reconfigure resources to match or create market change, and they improve the quality of strategic conversations. There are 4 zones on this step. The first is perfectly ecological, government came early, government late, and imperfect reality. For the perfectly ecological, there are several points. The first is easy access to electric vehicles by the general public. The government has begun to carry out electric vehicle technology infrastructure such as SPLU. The issue of environmentally friendly energy is starting to be promoted as in the SDGs. The government has begun to prepare research and development fund for the use of electrical energy. The second one is the government came early. The situations include the use of electric vehicles is not yet common. The availability of electric vehicle is still rare and the price is expensive, and the country still does not have an electrical energy infrastructure. For the government late, it is not supported by government regulations for electric vehicles. The government frequently implements rules pertaining to new technology late, such as cryptocurrency case, and developing nations have mostly adopted electric vehicle technology. And last but not least, for imperfect reality zone, the law still lacks any standards for electric vehicles. The general public still difficult assessing electric vehicles. The advantage of ecologically friendly energy are uncontested, and the creation of supporting infrastructure has not yet been undertaken by the government. So that's all from me.
That's all from us. Thank you for your attention.
We hope that delivery is easy to understand and can become a new knowledge for all of us.
Bye-bye.